We have obligations primarily, but that's okay because we dictate what that obligation is going to be. We get to write the contract. We get to determine all the terms. And if the terms do not fit our criteria, we can say no deal. The buyer can walk away from the contract. The seller cannot. It's known as an options contract. This is in the real estate world. A number of you have been in real estate for years and you understand this. I've used the example in the past of rent to own when you're doing like a covered call. It's three different pillars that we consider making up the basis of options. You have the first pillar, which we're going to talk about, and that's what is the call and the put, what's happening when you sell and buy a call and the put, and what's the rights and obligations. Then you have the second pillar, and that's what is the option chain and how do you use that option chain, because that's how you buy and sell calls and puts from the option chain and understand if you're in the money and things like that and out of the money and your probabilities of success. And then you have the third pillar, and that is what is the basic option strategies. And I like to say, if you understand the basic option strategy, be able to understand all the different exotic strategies that people come up with because they're just deviations from the strategies, from the basic strategies. Those are the three pillars of the basis of options, you guys. And so let's focus on pillar one today. And let's talk about first rights and obligations. If you are the buyer of a call, you have a right to purchase at a strike price. You have the right to buy. And if you are the buyer of the put, you have the right to sell. So it's two different things that you can do by being the buyer. You can be bullish, that's the right to buy, or you can be bearish, that's the right to sell. So you're both buying. Now, when you are the buyer of something, like if you're the buyer of a call and you have the right to purchase, then someone has to sell it to you. So the person who is the seller has the obligation to sell to you on the call side. So the seller of a call has the obligation to sell to the buyer. The seller of the put has the obligation to buy from the buyer of the put, because the buyer of the put has the right to sell. So you have to sell it to someone, right? So if you have the right to sell, someone's going to have an obligation to buy. So the seller of the put has the obligation to buy. So that word obligation has a negative connotation to it. It makes you think that it's something bad, at least for me, you guys. And I like to say this because I don't like to have obligations. For the most part, we all have obligations, but I really don't like obligations. But in the options world, the obligation is not necessarily a negative thing. Before we continue with the video, I just want to quickly point out, if you need any additional help, please consider joining our trading club. You can do that by clicking on the link in the description area, and you'll get a 3-month trial for a flat fee of $60. We look forward to seeing you in the trading club. Back to the video. And so if you are the buyer of an option, a single option, let's just say, your odds at best is 50-50. When you're buying any type of option, regardless if it's far out of the money, that's worse, significantly worse than 50-50, or deep in the money, that is at best 50-50. But if you are the option seller, and I'm just talking about a single option at this point, if you're that option seller who has an obligation, your odds are better than 50-50, or at least, but most of the time, 99+% of the time, better than 50-50, better than a coin flipping probability. Even if you're doing something deep in the money, if you're selling an option deep in the money, you still have better than a 50-50 shot. Here at Dorian Trader, we like to say that the option seller is the insurance company. The option seller is the casino, is the house. The option seller is the landlord. All three of those have the odds on their side. The insurance company gets to set the terms. And so if you're going to be able to set the terms, if you're smart, those terms are going to be on your side. You're not going to set terms that are not favorable to you. The casino, they're not going to have games at their casino that the odds are against them. That's counter to the kind of definition of a casino. You're trying to make money. You're not trying to lose money. You're not going to have odds that are against you. You're not going to have games there that you can lose money on over time. That makes no sense. And then the landlord, if done right, the landlord should be making money on you over time. At the very least, you should be paying down their mortgage, helping them pay down their mortgage. if not paying it down completely to them and giving them some extra cash flow. The option seller is better. Here at Dorian Trader, we are primary option sellers. We have obligations primarily, but that's okay because we dictate what that obligation is going to be. We get to write the contract. We get to determine all the terms. And if the terms do not fit our criteria, we can say no deal. Now, in the real estate world, it kind of highlights these rights and obligations so you can kind of have a better understanding of it. So I got this example from Andrea, like I said before, maybe a couple years back. And it goes like this, you guys. In real estate, you can have a contract on a home in which the buyer is given the right to buy. Let's say a year down the road at a set price. Sounds like an option, right? The buyer has the right of first refusal on whether they want to purchase the home or not. Sounds like an option. The right, but not the obligation. That's the buyer. You have a right, but not the obligation. You do not have to live up to your right. On the opposite side of the contract, the seller is obligated by the contract to sell to the buyer should the buyer wish to exercise their right. The buyer can walk away from the contract. The seller cannot. It's known as an options contract. This is in the real estate world. A number of you have been in real estate for years and you understand this. I've used the example in the past of rent to own when you're doing like a covered call.
Yeah, this is absolutely true too. This is how it works.
Yeah, Awanza's been in the real estate world for a while, for a long time. And this is exactly how it works. You have been dealing with options perhaps before you even knew it. But it's not a bad thing to have an obligation, and it's not a bad thing to have a right. But with options, it's all about strategically setting it up correctly. Because even though you might have the odds on your side as the option seller, you can set yourself up for failure. Insurance companies go out of business all the time. Casinos go out of business all the time. Landlords fail all the time. But the good ones, the good landlords like Awanza, you make money. The good casinos, they make money. The good insurance companies like the Geicos, they've been around for 100 plus years. They make money. You want to be that. You want to be able to stay in business as long as you want to. Some of you have heard me say that I want to trade until, 100 plus years old if God is willing. I mentioned that earlier today.
Brian,
Yes, sir.
Doc here.
Hey, Doc.
Yeah, but I've been listening for sure, and yeah, certainly, I'm in the rental game, and just in terms of my general education before I got into it, yeah, options definitely exist in that space. Doesn't seem to be used all that much, but they certainly are there. My broader question was, the notion of like when you buy an option, that 50-50
Mm-hmm.
likelihood of profitability. Now, again, this is like my anecdotal experience and whatnot. So you can tell me if I'm thinking about this the right way. I certainly have had a better than 50-50 probability on buying, deep in the money, long dated calls and stuff like that on as kind of a replacement for like equities. And
Mm-hmm.
the way I see it is, I oftentimes will buy something like 80 delta or more deep in the money. And then when I look at like, how much it'll appreciate if the stock moves in my favor versus how
Mm-hmm.
much I've paid for it, that always seems to be the compelling thing. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems like over time, I've won on the majority of those things. Now, is that just a surrogate of like, hey, we've been in a upward drifting market, so yeah, just as if you had bought and held, any long-term equity, that percentage of being profitable is more than 50-50. If you hold it long enough, you're just doing the same thing with these kind of leaps. And so, yeah, you're going to win more than 50% of the time. And you're talking more on more short dated call options if you
So,
buy them.
so I'm talking about them all, but
Hmm.
let me differentiate what
Hmm.
I'm saying.
Hmm.
So, if you're going to hold to expiration,
Hmm.
then what I'm saying is a fact.
Okay.
If
Okay.
you're going to get out before expiration, then you can change those odds, right? Just like
Okay.
on the selling side, we like to get out sooner than expiration. Where on the buying side, it's even more critical to get out during expiration. But also a second factor, Dr. Meadows, is that you do have this positive drift in the markets. They have been going up, and they most likely, at least the S&P 500 is going to go up over time. And so if you're doing something deep in the money, then you have over time, if you're going to keep it long enough, you have a decent possibility of, having better than a 50-50. But if we go
Hmm.
by just the possibility of making money at expiration, you'll see
Mm.
that at best, even deep in the money, it's going to be 50-50. So for example, if you see this, if you're looking at the screen that I have right now, if we go here and I just put this at 112 just for easy math, you guys. I can even put it at 111 so you can see I'm not cherry picking here. So let's put this at 111. So what will happen is at expiration, you have to supersede what you paid. So this is 304 days to go. Not it's I would call this elite, but it's not technically, it's not over a year, but I would call this pretty far, right? And so what you do is you take the 560 and you add this 111 to it. And that will give you 671. So right now it's trading at 642. So if I'm going to buy this at 111, it has to go up to 671 at expiration. And so let's just say it's right here. Well, it's saying at expiration, it's a 43% chance it's going to expire above that 60-70 strike. And that's what TastyTrade is giving us here. So even though I did that in the money at a 75 delta, I can do it further and it'll still be the same thing. Are probabilities correct over time? Absolutely they are. Does that mean you can't win before expiration? No, it does not mean you can't. TastyTrade is saying this has got a 55% chance of making 50%. So, yes, if you're going to be the primary buyer, get out before expiration. And for me, long before expiration, if you got that 50%, ring the register. Because if the longer you stay in it, the longer the possibility that payment that you paid to get into it becomes too much to overcome.